Moin and Gluten Tag! I'm super excited because today is the first episode of Dough Doctor. And today I will be reviewing all the pictures of the breads that you sent to me. And I'm also going to be evaluating them from a scale from 1 to 7. Now you might be wondering why 1 to 7? Because I hate it when people use annoying scales. So 7 is going to be the best and 1 is going to be the worst. And I'm so excited you sent me all those great submissions while I was on vacation. I did not check them in detail because I wanted us to have a look at them together. Some of them have been really good, I was impressed, and others, yeah. So yeah, let's have some fun together, let's check them out, and I also hope that you will learn something new. Let's get started. Yeng Kit Kong, you were the first to comment, so you're also the first here. You are saying you were making a sandwich loaf here and you added rye and it seems to be tearing on one side and it's very uneven all around. You can't get the window pane. The dough tears when you try the test. Let's have a look at the picture. I'm very excited. Bread code troubleshooting. This looks delicious. Now I'm hungry. Okay, we can see here it tore on the side and yeah. And it also cracked a little bit on the top, which makes me think that probably you are not using enough steam. When baking in a loaf pan, a good trick is to use another loaf pan which you place on top to trap all that steam, or use my home oven setup where I have another tray on top just to create more steam. And since it's a rye-based bread, you don't have to do any gluten development. That's normal with rye. If you want to do that gluten development, if you want it to rise really nicely in the oven, I recommend to use maximum 20% of rye and 80% wheat. And now for the rating. I think you already did quite well, and I'm going to give you a 4 out of 7. Alright, next up is Tiwaz Dagr. Moin, I hope I pronounced your name properly. Let's have a look. You're saying they look alright, but they're hard to cut into slices without collapsing. The crumb seems to yield to slightest force. Okay, I feel this could be related to... Wow, nice. They look pretty good. I feel this could be related to you not letting the bread cool down for long enough. Let your bread cool down for an hour or 2. That should help. And try not to use force when you slice them. Try to just slice very slowly without applying any pressure. That should really help. I also noticed you have some larger pockets of air here at the bottom of the bread. I feel you might want to do another stretch and fold or more. Furthermore, you could also be applying some pre-shaping. Pre-shaping is also going to even out your crumb a little bit more. This to me would be a little bit too wild. Furthermore, what I noticed is that there's a lot of flour here on top. What I like to do is sometimes I use a brush and I just brush off some of the excess flour during the bake. Because I personally don't like this taste when you take a slice and then you have this flour in your mouth. There's no ear here on the bread. When baking a boule, I typically don't score like this. I would rather use a cross or so. And yeah, you might want to ferment it a little bit longer and also work on developing a little bit more strength. So, but overall, I would say this is already looking pretty good and you're gonna get a FIA! Okay, let me just prepare my ratings here again. Daniel K. You don't have a Benetton, which explains a little bit about the flat shape, but the fermentation is not as good. The dough is always too sticky to handle. I always accidentally degas the dough before the final shaping. I think my dough is just not firm enough. Okay, let's have a look at Daniel K. Nice! My first sourdoughs definitely looked way worse. So Daniel, keep going. There's a few things which I noticed. You have a very large crust everywhere. Are you using enough steam? You might want to upgrade your steam game a little bit. So I feel that's one thing you should improve. Either use a Dutch oven or use my steam setup. That should help because it looks a little bit too dark for my personal taste. It's also revealed by the large pockets of air, which you have more towards the top of your bread, which means the bread is trying to rise, but then it just collapses all the tiny pockets of air inside during the bake. So this is a sign of too little steam. You are saying it's too sticky. I mean, the crumb looks rather open, and maybe you are just using too much water for the flour. This really depends on the gluten content of your flour. You might want to consider just using a little bit less water. When starting, what works very well on average for almost every flour is to use around 65% hydration. So that's something you might want to be looking into. Rating wise, so you are going to get Daniel K, 3 points. Next up is Jimmy. So you don't have pictures of your original sourdough. You added some rosemary and olive oil sourdough. But okay, it became too sticky and it became such a mess to handle. Your most recent loaves finally settled at lower hydration, 67%. Okay, around 75% hydration. They came out so much better. I also used rye flour for the most recent loaves instead of the whole wheat flour that I used for the previous loaves. Okay, same thing again, rye flour. I love rye flour, but rye flour is completely different dough handling. What I love about rye flour, it's really so easy to bake. You don't have to do any gluten development. So if you use more than 50% rye flour, sorry, more than 20%, just mix it together, stir it, that's it. No gluten development needed. But now let's have a look at the picture. Okay, but you submitted 2 of them, right? So this one here looks special. I think this is a special bread. I'm sure it would be great to make a bruschetta out of this or something. Just toast it, take a clove of garlic and just grind it on the toasted bread. Probably super delicious. Yeah. Also, it seems that your loaf pan you have a very large loaf pan. Maybe you want to consider getting a little bit of a small loaf pan. Then it wouldn't look this much like a brick. It would look a little bit nicer. That's what I like to do. And yeah, so I wouldn't also say this is, well, okay. Let's be honest here, it's a little bit of a fail. But I hope we are all learning something from this. Next up, the other recent sourdough bake. I mean, come on, they look really nice. So you even have a nice ear here, good charring. I feel you could get a little bit more oven spring probably. Yeah, and this is also confirmed here on the bottom picture. I think you need to ferment for a little bit longer. Lowering the hydration, like you said, was a good idea. And those super large pockets of air here can also be a sign of under fermentation. So try to ferment a little bit longer. I proposed a small trick with a jar where you take a portion of the dough, put that into the jar, mark it, and then just wait until that doubled in size to finish the bulk fermentation. But I mean, just compare this from this to this. I'm going to give you a score for both of them. So bread number 1 is going to be a 1. I'm sorry. And now we get bread number 2. Bread number 2 is going to be a 3. So you already tripled the score from the first one to the next bread. So well done, keep baking. Alright, next up, Sara de Souza. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You have no idea. Crumb was dense and gummy, but still tasty. Your starter passed the flow test. Bulk fermentation was around 3 hours at 30 C. So that's a warm environment. Are you from, I don't know, I don't want to guess. I would say Sara de Souza. Could that be from Brazil? Anyways, 30 C. Second bulk ferment was in the fridge for 15 to 16 hours. It was 73% hydration. Okay, let's have a look, Sarah. On the Instagram. Loaf Novice. Nice username. Okay, so yeah, you have some pockets in the middle. To me, it looks under fermented. I feel you did not ferment for long enough. And you were saying 3 hours at 30 degrees Celsius. So I prepared this one table, table.thebreadcode.io, and here I did not originally develop this. All the credits go to erasennj.com. I just made it a little bit prettier and easier to read and removed some other variables and everything. So anyways, here at the bottom you can see 30 degrees Celsius more or less, and then 20% starter. Overall, it should be 4 hours and, well, 4 hours and 8 minutes. It should be 5 hours more or less until your dough is ready at that temperature, assuming that you have a very, very healthy and active starter. I feel that your starter might have passed the float test, but maybe it's not on the same level of activity where it should be. Please, for a few hours, for a few days, 48 hours, feed your sourdough starter twice per day, 1 to 5 to 5 ideally. Use some whole wheat flour or whole rye flour to feed your starter. It's really going to make a difference. You will feel your starter is so much more active. And yeah, don't bulk ferment for a second time. I would bulk ferment at room temperature, and then afterwards take your dough and place it, and then shape it, then proof it at room temperature for a little bit more until it almost passes the finger poke test, and then put it in the fridge for another 8 hours or so. Or you can put it directly into the fridge after shaping for around 24 hours. So let's go back to the picture. You are going to get what are you going to get? A 3. All right, Alexia, here's a fail I had. More bakes on the account. Let's have a look and let's see what's hiding behind. Undertaking baking, another fail Friday. Yum, yum, yum. Those are some large pockets of air. Probably very good to put some cheese inside. Clear sign of under fermentation. So keep baking. You want to take a jar. I shared this table here before. Have a look at this table as well. I think it should help a little bit. Take a small jar, take a portion of the dough after you mix in your starter. Wait until that doubled in size, and only then proceed with the next stage. So I think your starter is not as active enough, or you don't bulk ferment for long enough. To make your starter active again, I would recommend a couple of days at room temperature and feeding, and your starter should become more active. And then this also should not happen, because right now you also don't get a nice ear or something. That's typically a sign that the balloon has not been inflated enough. All right, I'm going to give you a 3. Okay, last review of today. Libby. Let's have a look. Not my latest loaf, but one of your better ones. Let's see what's hiding behind. Wow! Libby, I'm impressed. You even put in some statistics here at the bottom. Whole wheat, that's a German type of flour. It's almost whole wheat, spelled rye, and 10% starter. This looks very, very good. Some feedback here. On the outside of the bread, first of all, there, for me, that's a little bit too much flour. You would bite into it and it would be too much flour in the mouth. Just my personal preference. I feel that you could use maybe a little bit more steam during the bake, because this looks a little bit dark here. Yeah. And also now I see that you have some lines here, so I assume you're using a banneton without a linen. Maybe try to use a linen for your banneton. Then you also have to just use less flour. Plus you can also brush off some of the excess flour before the bake. In general, you said you used 20% rye whole grain, 20% spelt, so I think this is also great flour composition. I'm assuming this bread tasted really, really well. For that type of bread, I think you really nailed it. Remove some of the flour, just a little bit more oven spring. But Libby, you are on a great track. Just keep baking a little bit more and you are going to get a 5. Well done. So thank you very much for watching, and I'm really looking forward to hearing some feedback from you. Do you think 7 reviews per episode is enough? What can I do better? Please give me some feedback because yeah, it's still under development, under construction. If your bread has not been reviewed in this episode, don't worry, I will definitely review your bread. I also get so many messages on Instagram and other breads. Yeah, I will review all of them. I just wanted to ask you on some feedback on this format first, on what I can improve, and then they will be upcoming, either in the video or I will send you a message directly. So thank you very much as always. Thanks for watching. May the gluten be with you, and I am out of here. I'm still here.